Okay, I will break the ice, and as a participant of the scheme, I just would like to give an account. Yesterday I said we will never initiate, or probably not until we have a better idea about what's going to happen, pre-tactical regulations concerning weather and the expectancy of weather. This is what you said. You probably don't expect us today to do something apart from airport. Was part of the discussions in the preparation for the cross-border weather trial as well. It was mentioned that we have probably different needs than others around us, but I must say that one thing was very, very helpful in this cross-border weather trial. It was that we did not have teleconference on a daily basis, because workload really is an issue for us, especially in this tight staffing situation. And the preparatory work for the pre-tactical planning for tomorrow is as well done by operational staff in our facility. So to have the teleconference only when there was an indication, and this was already filtered by NM and the weather service, was very, very helpful. And the other thing is that it was also very, very helpful to get an idea, even if the weather briefing was not perfect to our tactical needs. It was very helpful for the pre-tactical planning to already have an idea about what is going to happen tomorrow, because there is information we took from this, and the information is, do I shift the staffing towards the afternoon from this sector group when we have to shift people or relieve people from work because of requests or other duties. Then we had another piece of information to base the decision on.
Okay, thank you very much. Probably interesting also to hear, I think partly you answered the question from your point of view, maybe from some of the other ANSPs in the room, to hear what would you actually need to come to a decision on, let's say, day -1, where I think Chris mentioned is not necessarily saying putting in a regulation, but having an idea and sharing that idea, what would be a potential regulation, maybe at a later stage. So what helps you? Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as with any problem, it's easier to come up with, let's say, additional problems and obstacles than solutions, but maybe I have a bit of both. In Maastricht, we started looking at, let's say, the playbook scenarios, because you don't actually have to wait until the weather appears to start developing your playbook, of course. So we started looking at how can we offload certain sectors, but in the end, if you're able to do that, then why would you not always do it to save your capacity? And that culminated in the ENM S19. So most of the stuff that you can do to offload your sectors, you have already done. And as a consequence, indeed, if you have to further offload, there are no options anymore, because you loaded everywhere that you could. So that is a problem. And then on the day itself, if you wanted to even further offload, we get to the same discussion we had yesterday about being able to lift RAD restrictions, temporarily lift RAD restrictions, because how else would you communicate this to the aircraft operators? As part of the solution, what we found is very helpful is that you have a common view on the weather, and literally a common view. It's not that your weather prediction needs to be the same. It is the physical picture that you're looking at actually needs to be the same, because none of us are meteo guys, are meteo specialists. So you tend to interpret the picture that you see, and with the same weather prediction, looking at a different representation of that same prediction, you may come to different conclusions. So I think that's important as well. But yeah, I come back to the point of the playbook. There is no reason that we could not sit together already before the summer weather hits us to start looking at what options are there, limited as they may be, but what options are there to do the offloading. And when it comes to pre-TAC regulations, by the way, in Maastricht, if there is a certainty of CB development of 90% or higher, which is extremely high, of course, in a weather prediction, then we do take pre-tactical regulations. So.
Okay, thank you. Very good input to that. Any more? Otherwise, I have here already a few cards. I think one very good question is here. What criteria are being used to define impact weather areas, extend in time and time are critical? So the extent of the impact and the time when it's supposed to happen. And so it's a question about what is the criteria for that. Is that already developed or? Yeah, please.
We have a workshop in the next couple of weeks, where probably for the first time, at least at operational level, at least at an M operational level, we've got quite a few Met forecasters coming to discuss directly, a couple in the room already, to discuss directly with our operational people, plus some people from Karlsruhe, Maastricht, and from NATS, to discuss the criteria that we would be wanting, what we would want to see, what would make us comfortable for collaborating. Because I think Holger made a very good point there as well. And certainly Monique and her colleagues have made the same point to me, is we don't want to work a conference every day. You know, it takes a good half an hour to organise, then you've got to have the conference, then you have an output from it. So it should be only when it's needed. The problem, of course, the other problem with having daily conferences is that they become just one of those things that you have to have, and you're just ticking a box. So, you know, when we talk about this as part of daily planning, it's not just planning for the sake of it. There has to be a reason for it, and there has to be a solid output for it. So I think that's one of the strong lessons that we learned from last year. That yes, we need to have them, or have some sort of collaboration, which at the moment is a conference, but we only have it when it's necessary. But how, as I think this question is talking about, is how do you decide what that, when it's that bad that you would need that, some sort of extra planning, and how do you know when it's the length of it and all the rest of it? And the answer at the moment is we're not sure. We're working. It's a work in progress, but there is quite a lot of work going on with that, and what I would like to see, there's been a lot of work theoretically, if you like, and I think Roel sort of was alluding to that as well. We did a lot of talking about it. I think for me the only way we find out is to actually work it, and to actually sit down, you know, during the bad weather in the summer, with all the other capacity constraints that we have, with all the other issues that are going on, and try and work out what's going, you know, try and work out a method. And that means that sometimes we'll get it wrong, and sometimes that maybe more delay than was necessary was created, but then on other times and we will learn and we will get better at it. And that to me is the way to go forward with this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Jenny, please.
Just to complement, good morning everybody again. Just to complement what Chris said, anyway, there will be an agreement on the definition, but the definition of impact of weather can be definitely any weather phenomena that create more complexity or forces for a reduction of capacity, either at an airport or en route. So that's the impact. We measure the impact then at the end on delays, in number of delays. So I hope that this workshop now will be able to define a common approach for defining what is the impact in reality, and also to find consistent reduction of capacity, because what we have is that ACC react differently depending on the place. So some ACC reduce the capacity of the sector by 20%, or they collapse the sector. So there are different behaviors that are not consistent. Yes, it's quite clear that every ACC, every sector has its own specificity. But then at the end, I believe that in order to have a consistent network behavior, we shall also agree on the way to react to this weather, on top of the preparation.
Okay, thank you. Tony, please.
Maybe a question building on that. Is it time to advertise the dates of this workshop, Gianni and Chris? Is it open for more stakeholders, or just those that you mentioned?
I'd like to open it to lots of people, but no, I have to say all the invitations are out. It's already organised. The reason being that we want to keep it small and operational. If it gets too big and it's a room like this, you end up with it. So we're already on that one. We have RANS for this year, but once we're confident that this is a procedure that we can go forward with, then yes, sure, we'll be opening it up. But I think some of that as well depends on EU MetNet and the collaboration with the Met providers, who is prepared and able to collaborate. I think Lauren would like to have a word, actually.
And also on that, Chris, will you be covering just convective weather en route, or also the airports? What are the measures at the airport?
At this stage, we are concentrating on convective activity. That isn't to say that airports wouldn't be involved. Last year, for example, there was a couple of occasions when we got Amsterdam involved, because there was convective activity that was certainly going to affect them as well as other areas, and so they came onto one of our conferences. So that would be done on an ad hoc basis.
Hi, so I feel like I ought to introduce myself as I'm here. I'm Lauren Donahue from UMetNet, and I'm here mostly to help coordinate all the Met services in this cross-border program that's going to go on this summer. The question about impact is a really interesting one. We had a debate between the Met services the other day as to what, we forecast weather. That's our business, and you forecast and look after your air traffic, what's happening at the airport and what's happening at the network level. And there's sort of this very fine line where Met services don't want to be saying, you need to close airspace or you need to do that. It's not our job. But what we need to do, and this comes back to very much the collaboration word that keeps coming up, is to help us understand your business and you understand what we do. I would strongly encourage every ANSP, every airport, every airline to talk to your local Met provider, because if you can develop that relationship, you will understand more about what's going on both in your local area, within your airport or your routes that you fly, but also it will help feed into what goes on with this cross-border trial. This year, it's very much, just the really, well, I'm going to call it the really, really busy airspace as opposed to just the really busy airspace that's everywhere else. But we really do want to be able to expand it wider to provide benefit. 25% of delay minutes is due to weather. Okay, yes, we can't take away that thunderstorm. It's still going to happen, but we can help you to understand where it's going to affect you, and if you can do something a few hours, even a day ahead, as has been said. So really encourage you to listen to your forecast, what you hear, and not wait till it happens. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Other comments to that? Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone. Just to support what Jenny has said, this is really frustrating from the airline operator point of view when we have two FIRs and weather phenomena going across the border through both FIRs, and one of them is reducing the sector's capacity by 20 or 30% and giving delays of 1 hour, and the other one is doing nothing. So we may fly there safely with full capacity, despite the area we have fly around of the first FIR. I'm not saying that the second one is doing good, but the situation is similar and the reaction should be similar, and we quite often see it is not going this way.
Okay, thank you. We have Minnie.
Hi. From our operational perspective, what we find that works well when it comes to weather and managing the weather in terms of ATFM, Heathrow example is a good example for us. Why? Because Heathrow, on day -1, when they have a strong forecast, they share this with whole network. Then they decide on a capacity plan. Then, following this capacity plan, they devise a reduction program. This is all done in communication with everybody, including ourselves. And following that, they decide on an ATFM plan. And if they decide that they have to regulate, they will do this on day -1. What is the advantage on this? Advantage is everybody is well informed how they are going to manage their operations next day. Everybody is informed how they are going to be impacted by this weather and the actions taken by Heathrow. So what happens is the chaotic situation is minimized because we are all prepared, we know what's coming, and we plan our operations accordingly, whether you are an AO or ANSP, I presume. So it brings stability, okay? What does not work well is that we have a strong weather forecast on day -1. The local authority or local unit, they know about it. We know about it. We do our communication with them. We ask for a plan, if you like. There was an example of Amsterdam, not to point anybody, but it was a really, really very strong example where forecast was clear. The impact was expected to be very strong. We have provoked communication, but then the decision did not come on day -1. And on the contrary, the decision came very late. And what happened was everybody, in a way, although had the information, was caught last minute because the decision to reduce capacity, the decision to apply an ATFM measure came really late. So we had a case, I don't remember exactly, but I think we had a capacity of 40 or 50, correct me, Chris. We went down to 1 per hour. I think it was in a matter of 1 to 2 hours. From our perspective, it was chaotic. It was really chaotic, and I can imagine that it was chaotic for the airlines. Decision can be taken differently. We know that there is a business reason behind this decision from Amsterdam. We have discussed about this. But what we would ask you to do is at least to come to a middle agreement, at least to come to creating a buffer to stop this chaos. Because when the chaos starts, you go in 1 hour from 40 down to 1, the whole day, including up until the night and the next morning, could be destroyed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Joe, please.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I think on this weather business, for me, we need to try. It is clear, as Monique has said, 1 hour is too short. It's, aircraft already in the air, you're dealing with those, you can't really protect your sectors. I also have a feeling that day -1 is too long, i.e. the credibility of the forecast, whatever its accuracy, but still, I think from an ATM perspective, it is inbuilt in the ATM experts and the ATM operations that basically we think we can solve things. So let's delay our decision. And day -1 is a very long time to take that decision. If we are ready to take the risk, and sometimes we get it wrong, and okay, we got it wrong, that's okay. But I think the airlines, once or twice, once we do it once, twice, 3 times, and we are getting it wrong and restricting them when the actual forecast then was not as accurate as it could be, it backfires. So I think there needs to be somewhere a good working parameter, and I think 6 hours seems to be a good, for me it allows for the discussion to take place, it allows for airlines to make their decisions, it allows for ANSPs to make their decision. But I think we need to find something where we don't, because we move too early, we lose, we get it wrong more times and we lose credibility for the whole process, and we are too late, and then it was useless, because basically we are just reacting after the event. We have tried to learn from the Americans, from the FAA. There they have a way of, even online support between all the Met organizations and services, including airline Met services, where they actually are more confident as aviation people about the forecast that they're looking at. Doesn't mean that it's better, it's just that they have confidence in it, and I think that's what we also need to build in. But I just put one word of caution. In the US, when there's a convective activity, they have space around it, they have capacity around it. In Europe, when we have convective activity over the Alps, where do we push the flights? Into Karlsruhe, into Maastricht? So basically, we are hit by two problems: the weather-related capacity constraints and the day-to-day capacity constraints. So it is not going to be an easy solution every day that we suddenly find a scenario where everybody can go through. No, there is work to be done, and that for me is the work at day -1. What if? Do we really find something that is useful to address? And then, yes, 6 hours before, maybe take the plunge and say, okay, we do it. And we will get, sometimes we will not get it right, but okay, if we get it, I think John uses the 80%, if we get it right 80%, we have made a significant inroad into the delay budget for weather.